All right, so let's get started with the lesson. We're going to be covering Pisces, and I'm assuming most of the time, if someone joins this session online, they're probably wanting to learn some part of their chart where they have Pisces, or maybe the opposite, or they're just curious. So, if you guys have that, of course. So we're getting into Pisces. I believe, therefore I am. This is the 12th sign of the zodiac. It is the last sign of the zodiac, and it's definitely going to be going over the endings to start the beginnings. Just like the snake that eats its tail, we are in a constant cycle, perpetual cycle. And so here in Pisces, we're looking at how it is that you can surrender, how it is that you can go away, and how it is that you can enter Narnia, in a sense, enter a new fantasy, a new delusion, and how it is that you can become born again, brand new in Aries. So if you're born between February 19th and March 20th, you are Pisces. Um, you will probably have more than one Pisces placement. You might have one or two, maybe some Aries in there, but your water element, you are ruled by Neptune, but also Jupiter. I like to put them both together because it's giving. And it is a symbol of fish, but it is really also the symbol of duality to me. To look at Pisces, especially when you look at the fish, you are seeing what is two. It is zero and or one and two, and it is all about the womb. It is all about the dark, the divine feminine, the part of life that is not seen first before it is given birth to, and that's why I like to say it's the womb. And we're gonna go deep into that with the 12th house. So some positive traits is right off the bat, Pisces are healers. I always like to compare it to Jesus, but you can also do like a nun or anyone that could work in a religious context. But a natural healer is someone that will just feel people. Sometimes it could be frustrating because Pisces people will just feel, even against their will at times, and they're like, I don't want to feel. I don't want to be a part of that. I don't want to just constantly have to take in other people's energy. Um, but that feeling is because you're everything. You're connected to everything. You're everywhere all at once. That is to be Pisces. There is no past or no future. It's just the present always because time is like here, you know? And in that darkness that I was saying, you get creativity. Neptune, the pitchfork, to me, when I take this in intuitively, it is past, present, and future all together, and it always comes aligned. I know it's splitting from separate, like it separates here, but when I look at it, the origin point right here is darkness, and from there we have the future, we have the present, and we have the past all together. But Neptune holds that. It holds that fantasy that would say that it can be whatever you want it to be. In tarot, Neptune and Pisces, it I like to look at that. There are a few cards, but the one that I love is the Hangman because it is to sacrifice one life, to sacrifice one point of view, and while you're at your death or you're about to die, you're hung upside down and you're finally able to see a better way out. And you come to a realization that oh, it's not actually the end. This is part of the cycle to let go and to become something more. So that's really a big part of Pisces that I like to think about. And for this reason, as I brought tarot up, Pisces is very intuitive. It's very much a spiritual gift. Most of the water signs have an intuitive gift, albeit some more insane than others. Pisces is definitely the waterbed of tarot to me. I would definitely say astrology is Uranus. It's very Aquarian, but Neptune and to feel, to connect with any. gift, whether it's like clairvoyance, whether it's Akashic records, whether it's mediumship or anything like that, it's to connect with an energy of someone else. And you were not physically seeing that. It's something that transcends time to me because you can connect to someone's past history, you could read their future with tarot, and so all of that is the energy of Pisces. Now, some negative traits that you can come across is if you don't know how to control it, you'll be sensitive to it a lot, right? If you can't actually learn to navigate that infinity and you don't have any sense of self-control, then you'll kind of get overwhelmed. I like to look at the polarities of a sign because I feel like polarity is everything in our own realm. And when you have Pisces, if you're able to be free, if you're able to be emotionally connected to everything, the opposite of that is Virgo. And I've covered Virgo before, but just a summary, Virgo is the maiden, and Virgo is kind of wanting to be the servant. So like I look at Virgo and I'm like, it's a servant of Christ, or it's a servant of a religion, or it's a servant of a missionary, or it'd be the teachers at a school. But just like Virgo can get very OCD and very nitpicky and not let someone else say something and they feel like they have to be right or they share too much, Pisces can be that way, but instead of pressuring themselves on you and probably arguing with you, they will just run. The moment they get stressed or they don't agree with something, they quite literally disappear because they can get so lost and wrapped up in their own emotions, their sensitivity, their delusions. And so I always like to say this to people. If you have Pisces placements, you have to learn how to create a healthy boundary when you start to have too much. Escapism is cool, and that's a big part of Neptune. It's a very gassy planet, but you cannot just run away forever. You have to kind of learn to be grounded in this physical material plane. So, looking at the actual planet of Neptune outside of the sign Pisces, we know it's the ruler. We know that it has a really big part of dreams. Um, it's a big part of manifesting. And another thing societally is that it definitely affects all of us. Neptune gives fashion trends. Neptune gives media. Neptune gives perception of life. We've had Neptune in Pisces now for the past several years. And on the ingress of Neptune in Pisces about 12 years ago, we got social media. We got Facebook. Hopefully this works. Sometimes this thing can crash. But we got all of that actually. When you do look at how it is that time moves in astrology, you come to learn that Neptune is going to give us a whole lot of really cool innovations. It's going to give us a whole lot of different perceptions of how people should think or how they maybe might want to take things in because Neptune rules religion, it rules perception of thought, and it's seen as mythos or like how it is that people would take in an idea, right? We had Pisces go into we had Neptune go into Pisces around the start of 2012, around the time Facebook was also um, basically established. And it gave us an era of us being able to be not at all worried about life outside of us. But at the same time, it gave us humanitarianism in a way that was profound. So social media let us connect with people and it let us kind of share. I'm connecting with you because of the ability of Pisces. I know it's like, but this is technology. This would be Aquarius, but without Pisces, we wouldn't have the actual platform of what it is that we want to share. None of us would be able to exercise our spiritual gifts for those of you that are from other groups on Meetup and you want to learn tarot or you want to learn how to sew or you want to learn a specific book series. That's Neptune and Pisces. It's connected all of us that way we can actually bring compassion and love and also just knowledge as well. Now, at the same time, it has brought up to the surface how dystopian our world can be. It shows the true nature of duality, and Neptune in Pisces has shown the world how crazy this world is, but the universe, how there's always someone winning and losing, how there's someone starving and full, how there are rich and poor. That both is the darkness that we would look at and say that's where imagination or creativity comes from because it's not controlled. And so we can see how Neptune and Pisces going with Pluto and Capricorn kind of give us a really big distinction of capitalism between one group of people and another. It also shows us how some people are not what they say they are. And most importantly, it's kind of escapism to a point where the sign that you might have Neptune in is where you want to go when you just want to leave everything, you know. Thank you for sharing your big three, Bunny. you you really want to be aware of where you have Neptune in for that reason. My generation has Neptune in Capricorn. We were basically raised by capitalism from the last that I could remember my conscious everything's about money, and that's Neptune and Capricorn. And also we had Uranus as well in Capricorn. So it was quite literally the religion of money and structures and power and greed and things that are seen as hierarchy and everlasting because that's the elements of Capricorn put into Neptune. It was also a nice spiritual grounding um, point of view of things, but during that time it was traditionalism at its like core because that's Capricorn in Neptune, right? A very structured way of thinking and taking in life. um, so we have the housing system and based on the sign that you have as you're rising, if you do know when you were born, you'll be able to see where you have Pisces in your chart. So if you're an Aries rising, Pisces is always in your 12th house. If you're not and you have Pisces somewhere else in your chart, then you'll be able to see in that house where it is that you're affected. So if we use a mock chart and you have Cancer rising, Pisces will be in your ninth house. That is a pretty good place to have Pisces. Makes you very spiritually in tune. Um, we have an Aries rising. We also have a Libra rising, Pisces and Saturn. So you're going through your Saturn return right now, and it's been unlocking your spiritual gifts um, as it's in your ninth house. That's what Saturn does. Good for you. Happy to have you here. So no matter what the house is, we're going to influence how Pisces would be there. So if we cover the 12th house first and we take a look at that, the 12th house is your subconscious mind. It's dark. It is dreams, fears, and unconscious patterns. It gets associated with an asylum sometimes. It gets associated with, um, I want to say hospital and mental health because it's really just something about you that you have to learn to understand. And you don't get to learn to understand it too well prior to the first 30 years of your life, and you get better at understanding it. And so I like to always tell people if you have placements in your 12th house, you really want to take the time to fully connect with that because it could be something unconscious that gets triggered, that's been reacting since you were younger. The 12th house, Howard Saspertas talks about this, is also the womb. So it could tell you if you know when you were born, the conditions your mom was giving birth to you, and that could help you understand some trauma. It also squares your ninth house, it squares your third house, and it opposes your sixth house. So what that means, if you're seeing on the screen, is that this is a 12th house Leo, and it has a square or a 90-degree angle to a ninth house in Taurus, and then it has another square here to a third house in Scorpio, and then it has an opposition here to a sixth house in Aquarius. So this Virgo rising person has a mentality that they want to achieve things to be better. They might have some ego issues because the sun or Leo, is in the 12th. So to understand themselves, they want to be better. They want to see themselves better, but sometimes they might avoid the limelight, right? Their ninth house, which would be their spiritual conquest, in my opinion, and higher education, is that they will steadily try to increase how much they know to benefit the other parts of this axis. The third house would mean that they're probably going to be a lot more intuitive than people realize, but they're not going to feel the need to share that. They're going to keep it to themselves. And then lastly, the sixth house, being Aquarius, would show me that regardless of what they do, they truly do it for themselves and humanity. And the biggest reason for that is they don't care about what they do every day, just as long as it's something that's really different and it's also humanitarian because it's Aquarius. All of that, without knowing anything else, can be taken by knowing where your 12th house is. Um, it gives us a good point of view of someone's subconscious mind and parts of themselves where they tend to self-sabotage. That Leo 12th house could have some ego issues that if someone says something, it could trigger them feeling like, oh, I'm different. I do different things on a day to day because my sixth house is Aquarius. I'm not like people in this way. Without even addressing the planets, and you could see that it's just because they want the spotlight. They want to be understood because of how much it is that they feel that they know about things. This can also bring up where you do have an issue with the hidden enemies because while you think of a specific way and you don't let that out, it's like a shadow side. People can sense that in you, and they're like, if you're not aware of it in yourself, they might see that. You can also see very natural gifts that you might have because Neptune, which rules Pisces, which also technically is the ruler of the 12th house, would show you that's where I have my spiritual gift. So a Leo person, well, what kind of spiritual gift would they have with the Leo 12th house? Probably just simply their presence. Like everywhere they go, they would get recognized for the things that they do in their chart. If it was something like, let's just say Capricorn, I would look at that and say, oh, they're very smart in the perception of how power works. Very quick to see what it is they have to say to get themselves to position themselves in a specific way. Maybe someone that has Sagittarius in the 12th house, they're pretty fun. They're not thinking about life too seriously. They're probably really riding the wave of life and just having a lot of fun, drinking and such, maybe. But also, lastly, the 12th house here would show me as well when the person's trying to escape what it is that they're running from addressing. So again, if we go back to that 12th house in Leo, maybe they just really want to be seen for who they are, and so they're always buying the most, I want to say different, but still expensive, unique things because they want to be like, oh, I'm completely different than anyone else. And I'm going to show that in the things that I purchase and wear and dress about because I don't do that like other people do. And so you can keep going as deep as you want in the 12th house because it is a really big, important house. Besides the first, fourth, sixth, sorry, seventh, and 10th, it's really important to know where someone's thinking. Whenever I do a reading for someone, I immediately like to look at, depending on the questions they have, but I always look at the first, 12th, seventh, fourth, the third, and the 10th in that order before anything else. Because I will understand your subconscious. I'll understand how you like to look at life with the first house. I'll understand how you connect with people and how people sometimes perceive you. I'll understand how you think with your third house, the family trauma versus how you probably project that onto your day to day career with the 10th house. And so getting here, I think I taught pretty quickly today. We have a lot of time for questions. We're going to get into something that's a little bit more advanced, and it's called the planetary dignities, which means essentially where a planet wants to have a sign in. And some fancy words that could say, this is better than this, but I do want to preface everyone's chart is to the best of their necessary needs. So having something that's seen as detrimental and fallen could be a way to finish a karmic thing because it's like, hey, like you avoided this completely last life. Or if you don't believe in that, then hey, this is what it is that your soul needs now for you to focus on. So when we do get to Pisces, we know that the domicile, meaning the sign that it wants to be in, is Neptune. And we talked about that. We've been having Neptune in its domicile for the past 13 years, and it's going to be moving into a sign of birth, which is Aries. Um, Looking at the detriment, meaning where Pisces probably doesn't want to be, is the planet of Mercury. Because Mercury is all about logic, but also Mercury is the ruling planet of the sign Virgo. And if I move this here, if I can try to get this going to get Pisces in that 12th house. Oh, did I skip through it? I think I did. Okay. In this chart, we have the planet Pisces, sorry, the sign Pisces in the 12th, and then we have the sign Virgo in the 6th, right? This is really easy to understand with the domicile. It says it right here, the number. Hmm? Yeah, you're fine. There is no stupid question, don't worry. Um, yeah, sometimes charts when you look at them they won't have the numbering, but it's usually okay, no problem. So seeing that Pisces is here in the 12th, the domicile or the, let's actually color code this so it can stick cognitively in your guys' brains. So the domicile here is a good thing. Some like it's seen as that way. And then the opposite of that, the detriment would be what is polar opposite, 180 degrees. And that will be the detriment. And I'll just leave it at that. The opposite is basically 180 degrees, or it's like the masculine or feminine, or it's the plus and the minus, yin and yang, etc. But in astrology, the ruling planet of Mercury wants to be in Gemini or Virgo. So Pisces, the sign Pisces being in the planet of communication, which is mercurial, is not a good thing. And it could be detrimental because it's not really always thinking. It could be aloof and it could just not fully be present and there. So that's a reason why it's seen as that way. Now, Pisces is exalted in Venus. So Venus actually wants to be in Pisces, and that's what I tell people. It's like agape love. It is to be able to love someone continuously forever and ever and ever. And that is very ironically, like I have to revert back to religion, even though I'm not religious for a lot of things, because the idea of the different type of love that was taught in Greece, like Eros, and agape love, it would be like a Jesus type of love. That is the most purest way to love someone. It's to sacrifice yourself, irregardless of how many times you get hurt. Um, but sometimes there's cons to that because you put yourself in situations that don't need your help. And we can see the polarity of this with Virgo Venus, where they're constantly trying to fix people, versus Venus and Pisces that constantly want to love people. They probably might not have anything they can help them with other than to be there to hear them cry, right? Last but not least, we have a similar placement of the fall, which would be Pisces being in Mercury once again. And that pretty much covers most of the teaching portion of this. I try to keep it very straightforward and simple. And so now, if you guys feel like you got to get water or anything, we have a good 30 some odd minutes to answer questions that you might have. So if you have a chart that will show it being some of the house is Pisces, some of it is something else, that means you're using the sign system of Placidius. I'm using whole signs. Now, Placidius is, oh, I'm probably going to spell this wrong, but Placidius is based off the movements of the equator. So depending on where you're born, some signs will look different than others. And while I don't use it, I use it for timings versus reading a chart. So I always try to tell people to use whole signs to make it easier on them. And then from there, they could look at their Placidius chart. Hopefully that answers your question. Correct. I like to use it that way. It doesn't have to be that way. The only difference is that whole sign is a housing system, meaning the houses 1 through 12, meaning these, that makes it so that everything is equal when you look at it. So that way, if I actually change to Placidius here, what you'll kind of see is the oh I might have to exit out for that. Oh, oh, it's not letting me here. hmm Yeah, and you'll be able to see it if you because yours is a printout, and I would honestly recommend that you try to use a digital version, like typing in your chart, um, because you'll be able to, if you use whole signs in some Placidus systems, you'll see that it have AS, IC, DS, and MC, and that will kind of indicate most of the time that it's a whole house system because they're equal, like Paul was saying. Placidius can be confusing for a lot of new people, and so that's why I always tell them just look at whole sign so you can familiarize yourself with your planets and the houses that they are in before you go over to that. Because if you're born somewhere wacky, then you'll have the weirdest looking chart because of something called interceptions, where, which I'm assuming is in your chart, one house is way bigger than everything else, and then there's more knowledge you have to immediately take in, and that makes the barrier of entry into astrology kind of more daunting and overwhelming. hmm Yes. So if someone's rising is in is in the 12th house, meaning you're probably using Placidus. If it's in the 12th house, right? What is your rising if you like me to look? Okay, so it's Leo. That's perfect. So then if we go here into hours, and I'll say, so if you have Leo rising in the 12th house, then you're going to be looking at the opposite of that being Aquarius in the 6th. This ascendant is Virgo. It's just simply because I'm using whole sign that it doesn't put it in there. Because that makes it very confusing for you. You can read both systems. I mentally do that. Like when I read whole sign, I also consider where something could be in Placidius based off the rising and the axis. I see the descendant and the 12th house and the 10th house and where the midheaven is. hmm hmm So your rising and sun are the same sign, which is Taurus. Okay, so you have your sun. and you're rising together. There's nothing wrong with that. Let me see if I can make that. I could do that here with Aquarius. It just means that you truly are your personality. Whenever the sun and the rising are conjunct, it's like the purest form of the sign. Your first house is going to be your expression of self after being basically given birth to into astrology, going from the 12th to the first, that's you. So if your rising is going to express you to the world, and your sun is ego and it's your sense of self, you are quite literally your sign. Like it's such a concentration of that. So when people take it in, they're like you would be, without looking at all your other placements, what people would be like, oh, that's a Taurus, because it truly is like your sun and the way you present yourself is that way. Without even speaking or doing anything else, they would take that in and say, that's who you are. That's a Scorpio. That's an Aries. To be a Taurus rising and sun together? Okay, well, that would mean that you're ruled by Venus. Um, and Venus is the planet that does relate to, let's go ahead and draw her. Venus is the ruler of Taurus and Libra. It would rather be in Libra than in Taurus, but it doesn't mind being in Taurus. And they're both signs that want a good, comfortable life. Libra might be a little bit more fancy in the way that it wants things to look good. That does not look like fancy, but it really does want things to be aesthetically pleasing. It wants harmony and balance because it is a scale. Whereas Taurus could just want things to be practical. It wants things to be steady and consistent. It doesn't want gaps out of its day-to-day life. Venus is a planet that, because it rules both, it will look after itself predominantly. And so to have the sun, which would be your sense of self, or I like to say the ego, um, you would exude Venus. You would actually give off that sense of stability. A lot of Venus people that I notice, Venus rising as well, have amazing skin. But a big part of that, whether it's the skin or the way that they look, is just they're part of the earth. So they don't need, in my opinion, like makeup. They don't need a whole bunch of extra stuff to go outside. Libra might like itself to look pretty and stuff, but it doesn't need that. Naturally, it's very aesthetically pleasing. In another sense, they usually are stubborn people. Um, Taurus is a fixed sign, but Taurus likes to pitch a tent and just simply keep growing with whatever it is, and it doesn't really want to have to come back down. Taurus is the first earth sign, Earth, in the three earth signs of Taurus, Virgo, and Capricorn, and it doesn't want to have to restart. It's the first stepping stone, is what I like to tell people. If you're running a race and it's like a dash, but instead of a dash, it's like a giant marathon, and every step you take reduces time as you get closer to the end. The first step is paramount because that first step is the best chance you have at making sure you don't have to go back. Because after the race has started, even though it's just you, there are other people near you, and you feel like you're losing behind. So they might try to hit off some markers for things. It's also about pleasure. Um, it can be seen connected to fashion, um, but very natural fashion, because it's beauty and art. So, for instance, Picasso has a Taurus. I think it's Taurus Venus. I think I think Saturn was also there. Mars or Mercury. He has a stellium. But if you go back, a lot of amazing artists will have Taurus stelliums, or they'll have some Pisces stelliums, Pisces Mars, um, especially Venus and Pisces. Speaking of this, because they combine the ethereal, the like darkness of the feminine, and then they bring literal Venus together to create endless amount of art. Also, because it's pleasure, some amazing. chef skills, love sweets, love food, love savoring food. You can think of also jazz. You can think of also just stability. So having these two together, it's like it's not looking dumb, but it's like not speaking and not having too much assumed of you, but still somewhat respected. It's like you're just there. It's not Leo where it's like everyone has to come to you because of what it is that you give off to make them feel good. They're coming to you because you're stable, at least assumed you're stable, not keeping in mind the rest of your placements. Yeah. Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. You have a really strong expression of Venus having your sun with your rising like that. You're welcome. Anyone else? Uh, oh, I have hands raised. I didn't see that. I'm sorry. Um, okay. Okay. What's your question, EJ? Hmm. 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 Okay. But what is your question? Thank you for the background. Mhm. Okay. I can't give you a full reading, but I can definitely say having your 10th house being Aries and you're saying it's with your north node, but then it's squaring your sun and your Mars. Hmm, that can be pretty tricky. I feel like you would have learned a lot about that since November of this year, of not this year, of 2023, because the north node and the south node entered Libra and Aries. And so it would have probably shown you that your identity and who you are is not as closely linked to the career that you're choosing as much as you want it to be. You're more than that. And it would challenge you to be outside of your perceived sense of power and where you want to be with your career. And then how can you build out of that? Unfortunately, because Mars also squares it, it has to be some sort of thing that you work yourself out of. Um, but yeah, if I had to read your chart, especially having the 10th house there, it's like it really does boil down to not everything has to be a fight for you to go fight. I would look at that and say, be a coach for someone else, be someone else's like ear, um, without having to go engage that with yourself, because you just have to learn balance, you know? Yeah, of course, of course. Um, rocks. Yeah, go ahead. Hmm. 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 Okay. Yeah, yeah. But so what's your question? About your chart. No, I get that. It's more or less that there's so much I could say, but I definitely would need a question. Like if you needed to know about something I could answer, but then otherwise I'd just be giving you a full reading. Hmm. Okay. Okay. Hmm. Hmm. Okay. Well, for that, I definitely have to sit down and look at your whole chart because I wouldn't be able to just give you like a brief summary like that without taking a look for you. Yeah. Yeah, no problem. No problem. Roxanne, what's your question? Yeah, right. So Saturn is in your ninth house. Oh my gosh, I clicked this way too many times. Oh, I'm doing it by years. I feel so silly. Saturn's in your ninth house, and so you've been having the lesson to kind of learn about not even just your spiritual gifts, but letting go. Now, you said you're an Aries rising. Am I understanding that correctly? Okay, so if you're in Aries rising, Saturn and should wouldn't be in Pisces because it's three over. Your Saturn is Pisces, so it should have been in your 12th house. Okay, okay, okay. In that case, then we can try to do a little makeshift of that here. So this is where we would see, let's actually just go to, oh, that's not allowed. Let's see if this is allowed. Oh, it just crashed the program. Sorry about that. Um, let's not save that and let's open this. There we go. And let me see. Thank you. I just love technology. It's amazing and most of the time when it's working, it's good, but if it doesn't, it'll suck. All right, so let's go here and then let's go ahead and do a few hours just so I can get this. All right, cool. So Saturn's in Pisces and it is in your 12th house. It is going to be unlocking all of the things that are Piscean. And since Saturn is in there, the party is kind of over. I want to say I tell people that Saturn in Pisces has been a transit where it's like you've been in a party or you've been in a giant fog about something and It's like either the cops are coming in, Saturn, and turning on the lights and turning off the party lights, or it's like someone's coming into this room full of fog and mist, maybe with people smoking, and just having a giant like evac and just sucking out all the smoke. So you have to sit there and sit with yourself and say, wow, what am I doing? What am I doing with my day to day? Saturn will oppose your sixth house and show you probably some depressing like features of you have no structure, or all the things that you're doing are not feeling like they're mounting to what it is in your day to day. And since that's Virgo, it's been very taxing, especially if you have Virgo placements, because Virgo likes to control, and not even just control, but argue. So this was a very humbling Saturn return, because if you didn't let go, Saturn was probably whooping your butt, um, especially if you have Virgo placements. And so it's helping you unlock a part of your subconscious that can be free. And kind of your okay, so that this was even more tough. If you had Mercury or Mars in Virgo during this transit, it could be hard because Virgo's double down. It's like, okay, this doesn't work. I'll go capitulate here. I'll go find this to make this work. I'll go do this and this. And so here you are trying to find every solution. Here you are trying to do every action if you had Mars. And Saturn's like, no. Every time you go somewhere else, it's like, sit down, learn the lesson. You're like, no, I'll go this way. And it's like, sit down, learn the lesson. And so that's what it's kind of been, you know? Yeah. Mm, yeah. Mhm. Oh, I do. I do. And I'd love to give you all readings, but we'd be here for hours, which is why, like, if you have a specific question, we do a reading, you could probably just book for like 30 minutes and that would answer it. Because I do try to just give you, like, we've only been here for really 30 minutes of learning, no, 20 minutes of learning, and then the rest have been questions. But I want to give you the most you can get so that way when I do my readings, it's recorded. I hand draw on my iPad the actual chart, and then I record it for you because what I have over already 300 some odd uploaded videos, and then I've looked at thousands of charts prior because I've been doing this for a few years, but I will draw on the chart, and then as I record it, you can come back. Well, I don't know if you can see, but I guess it won't do it. There you go. I'll draw, I'll record, and then you'll be able to come back and watch it. And sometimes just for fun, I like to look and see, and I'll have a lot of my previous people that read charts, though it'll be on like 20 views, but the video is private, so I know it's just them rewatching it because I will give you stuff that's for the present, that covers the past, and it'll have future for at least a few months to a year. Because as much as I want to see you guys again and I want to keep updated, sometimes I don't feel like you need me again, and at least for not for another year, like I want to constantly take on new people, but thank you for dropping that. Um, but yeah, what's your question, Paul? Thank you. Hmm. 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 That's good. Hmm. Hmm. Perfect. Okay. 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 No, it does. And that's a very simple answer. So having, I'm going to say some of your placements. I won't share the whole chart. But when I look at your first house and I think of the Pluto, right? Having Pluto on your rising is very, very powerful. And so you being in systems or institutions doesn't surprise me. Now, you mentioned three careers that I was going to tell you, which is interesting. So what you already do, which is a creative outlet for your Sun, the Mars, and the Chiron in the seventh, you can deal one on one with energies of people, and it's a water sign, right? When I look at your Saturn in the sixth house, that shows me you're trying to choose something for the long term. It has to be different than the average person because it's Aquarius. And ironically, we've been kind of talking about you during the video without the ego. It's not like I'm trying to come for you, but it has to be something consistent. So right now, if I consider Pluto's in Aquarius, so Pluto is definitely eviscerating your job by telling you you have to let go. The South Node is currently in, if I look at today, let's actually quit this and let's open it again. If I look at today, these are the current transits. And then if we actually look at your chart in this way, you got a whole lot. You have here all of this Pisces stuff telling you to move towards community and humanity. With the North Node in Pisces, it's telling you to just have the faith to go towards that. With Neptune still being in there, the South Node is in Virgo in your first house, and it's like stop trying to be perfect and allow yourself to do multiple things with Jupiter sitting in your 10th house. It's probably giving you opportunities. While coincidentally, Pluto is in Aquarius in your sixth and showing you that this is not viable long term. And the cool part, though, is while it could be painful to let some of this go, you will have Pluto conjunct your Saturn. So whatever it is you start doing, and I would advocate you start with a capital S in parentheses S, you should have multiple things that you're starting because you're more than capable with that Mercury and Jupiter in Aries there. So you have the ability to multitask. And your moon being in your 10th house, like, well, I would say 10th, but it's on your MC at least. Your career, like you are the definition of a workhorse, but at least you're not emotionless. You have so much emotion that you should be doing creative, you should be connecting with people, and you should be doing something that is like a world within itself. So you could be someone that gets a degree in like non-orthodox to be like a therapy. Like you could be a reverend, right? I think that's what it is. You could do therapy, you could still have a creative outlet, and you could still be in your institutions with just that one thing. And that's the sort of mentality I would tell you without getting too deep into your chart with just the current transits. Hmm. Yeah, so with the I'm looking at your chart and then I'm like doing it in my mind, but it's just like if you look, I overlaid it because you're a Virgo rising. So I can see I have multiple monitors, so I can see your own chart and then I'm just mentally plugging in where your placements are. And I can see that, your moon would be here and then you have your north node. So you should be working in hospitality with people. You're called to be of service to people, but you're also not just called to be the sidelines. You're also called to lead a lot of that because you have such starter energy in your chart. Yeah. Yes. Oh, you're showing me that yeah, yeah, I'm sorry. I was reading the inside circle. I think this is are you wanting me to reference what happened during that period? Is that what you're saying? This chart on the screen is today, and the one that is a good question because we're no longer in Aquarius season. we're in Pisces season, so I'm not. Oh no, no, they do. It's just you're not using whole signs. So the sun being in the sixth is just because your own descendant is 7 degrees, and this is something cool. So because your sun is three, sorry, your sun is uh, the sun is currently in Pisces at 3 degrees. Your rising sign is 7 degrees, so your descendant is always 180, and so it's 7 degrees, right? And so it's below. Yeah. Hmm. Correct. Hmm. Yes. Perfect. Yeah. And you're built for that. I wouldn't be surprised if you get doctorates and things as you get older. Yeah. Hmm. I would say let Jupiter enter into Cancer before you consider that, because then it would start trining your Pisces stuff. Hmm. It's about a year and 3 months or so. Yeah, yeah. I want to say the end of May, it'll start to ingress into. Yeah, yeah. You're very welcome. Does anyone else have any questions? I know we're almost done, but all right. Well, if no one else has any questions, thank you guys so much for coming out to my lesson. I always teach here on Meetup under Jolene. She shared this on, she's on the platform Meetup, and she allowed me to kind of use her platform so I can teach for free here. I do have a Patreon where I do Sunday teachings. I'm actually doing one on this Sunday. It's like it's like $10 a month, and I teach twice per month for like an hour. And then we do advanced stuff. I teach in person. I do readings. Obviously, I have a YouTube. I have a podcast. So if you ever want to get as much of astrology as you want, that's where you can find me. But thank you so much for being here, and I hope you guys took. Yes, they're in the chat. You should be able to see, yes, my website and everything, and then you'll be able to look at everything and give me a contact if you need. I'm friendly. I'm reachable by email. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much, and I'll go ahead and end the